Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Welcome, Patrick. Yeah, hello. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Wilmette Zoning Board of Appeals. Ms. Roberts, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Boyer.
Here.
Mr. Colang.
Here.
Ms. Norick.
Present.
Mr. Robke.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Sturman.
Here.
Chairman Duffy.
Present. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you new to our proceedings, the purpose of this board is to hear evidence on applications for variances from our zoning board, from our zoning ordinance, and on applications for special use. Based upon the evidence we hear this evening, we will make a recommendation to the Village Board of Trustees as to whether the applications that come before us should be granted or denied. We will vote to recommend granting or denying each application for variation based upon whether the application meets the standards of review set forth in Section 5.4.f of our village ordinance. Applications for special use will be considered based upon whether the standards of review set forth in Section 5.3.e of our village ordinance are met. The Village Board of Trustees will consider the recommendations we make this evening at their next regularly scheduled meeting on July 10th. Our recommendations to the board are advisory only. The Village Board has the final say on all applications and will make its own determination as to whether to grant or deny them. The Village Board is not legally bound by our recommendations. There is one small exception to this rule. If this board makes a negative recommendation with respect to an application, in order for the Village Board of Trustees to approve that application, a supermajority of 5 Village Board members must vote to approve it, rather than a simple majority of 4. There is one other small peculiarity to our proceedings of which you should be aware. This board does not operate by majority vote. We operate instead by a tyranny of 4. In other words, no matter how many board members are present on a given evening, in order to get a positive recommendation from this board, an application must receive 4 affirmative votes. Ordinarily, this board consists of 7 members. Tonight we have all 7 members, so I'm going to skip this part. Let's see. If you would like to continue your presentation to the next available date that we meet would be July 18th. There's no penalty for asking for a continuance. No such request will be held against you when your case is eventually heard. If you do wish to ask for a continuance, however, you must do so at the beginning of your presentation before making any substantive arguments as to the merits of your case. Please also be aware that when you request a continuance, there's no guarantee as to how many board members will be present on the evening to which your case is continued. The case we shall hear this evening will be heard in the order set forth on the pre-printed agenda located on the table near the door where you first came in. When your case is called, please proceed to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us exactly why your application meets the standards of review that are applicable to it. Each member of this board is a longtime resident of the village and has visited your property during the past week. In addition, we have received from village staff these green booklets containing all written information that you have submitted in support of your application, as well as any other correspondence that the village has received. Accordingly, it is not necessary that you repeat what you have already stated in writing. Please just hit the high points with particular attention to why you believe your application meets the standards of review. After the applicant has had a chance to speak, we will open the podium to others who wish to speak either for or against the application. Everyone will be permitted to have their say, though we would ask that you keep your comments as short and to the point as possible. After we have heard all oral presentations, I will close the evidence, and the members of the board will discuss what they have heard and take a vote. Once the evidence is closed, no further testimony on an application may be offered. The only people entitled to speak during that part of the proceeding will be the members of the board. This meeting is a legal proceeding, and all testimony tonight must be given under oath. Yeah.
I don't know what's causing that.
We don't either. Happened all last meeting, too.
It hasn't happened since your meeting, though.
I think it's Pat.
It's got to be me. It's got to be me.
The tone of your voice, maybe.
Yeah. All right.
Try to make it a little higher.
Let me. All right. This meeting is a legal proceeding, and all testimony tonight must be given under oath. If you're here and planning to testify tonight, I would ask that you raise your right hand at this time and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth in your testimony that you are about to give? If so, please say, I do. Thank you. Ms. Roberts, will you please call the first case of the evening?
Our first case is 2018 Z28, 816 Lake Avenue. This is a request for a 2.29-foot detached garage height variation to permit the construction of an addition to a legal nonconforming accessory structure.
Good evening. My name is Mike Chukazian. Thank you. Longtime resident of Wilmette, and just moved to this house about a year, not even a year ago.
Wow.
And so anyway, the reason for the variance and the reason I believe it meets all the standards is that we're trying to maintain the existing garage. So if everyone drove by, they probably noticed that the house and garage are easier to see with color. I'm not sure if you have color. Are very similar. I believe it was built in 1895. I think the garage was built at the same time. And so our plan was just to add another stall into the garage. So rather than tearing it down, or taking it down 2 feet, which was, I believe, the other option, I think it's more appealing, actually, to have a garage that matches. It has carriage doors in the front that were for horses originally, I believe, that where it came through the front of the garage. So it has doors that open on both front and back, because there's now an alley, of course. So we thought it fit within the character of the community, and it would make more sense to build it this way.
All right. Any questions for our applicant?
Could you put the photo, if you put it down on that, there's a projector above.
All right. Mr. Boyer, you
So
have a question?
so the plan is to make the addition match the existing structure?
Correct.
And the roof line will be the same?
Yes. No, except that no dormer, of course. There's an existing dormer. It does not move, but the new one just continues.
All right, so the dormer's on the south side of the garage. There's no
Correct.
dormer on the north side of the garage. Any other questions?
Would you say there's any practical difficulty with having a roof line at a conforming location?
Well, to have it conforming would have it drop. The second part would drop. I think that would look awkward.
There might be some ice damming, too.
Because I would probably prefer to just knock the whole thing, make it consistent if I was going to do that.
All right. All right.
So you plan on keeping all of the existing for the most part, or
Correct. Maybe-
reworking it, or?
Maybe redoing the shingles so it matches, because I don't think the shingles will match no matter what color you picked
Okay.
because of fading.
But the stucco and the
Yeah.
the board will all
Redoing
stay?
it, possibly paint it, but
Okay.
otherwise trying to keep that exact same look.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak either for or against the case? All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the case. I'm going to ask if there's a board member who'd like to make the motion. Mr. Cullen, thank you very much.
Move to recommend granting a request for a 2.29 detached garage height variation to permit the construction of an addition to a legal nonconforming accessory structure at 816 Lake Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Mr. Cullen?
Yeah, and I think this is a de minimis request. There's no other variances being sought as part of it. It's converting it from a two-car garage to a three-car garage. You're going to keep the same look and what have you, so I have no problem supporting this.
All right. It's under the allowable square footage. 800 square feet for a garage is allowed on this size lot. He's at 760. It's a sympathetic design to the original home. And I think more importantly, Wilmette has these alleys, right, an alley neighborhood, and so it's part of the character of their neighborhood. It's not just for garbage collection and parking. So the applicant actually should be commended for and applauded for keeping this structure and putting, an addition on that is exactly the same instead of putting up a three-car, vinyl wrap vanilla box, which would change the character of the neighborhood. And I understand it's an alley, but alleys in Wilmette actually are a part of the neighborhood. And I point to, the alley at 5th, the block of 5th and Forest, where there's a lot of older structures, two-story, still have some loading structural steel members. So I think it's pretty important to keep these structures.
Any other comments?
I think since they're under the FAR. I concur with the other comments, but I think also being on Lake Street, I imagine it's nice to have an additional parking space in the back, so.
All right, yeah, and my initial jump was, how is a three-car garage going to change that drive down the alley? And there's plenty of three-car garages within just 2 blocks. So there's 3 of them in the 800 block, there's 3 of them in the 700 block, and some of those are some of the older structures that Mr. Boyer referenced. So I thought this was a pretty good design, and seeing how you're not asking for any FAR, I thought it was pretty easy to approve as well. So why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Colang,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Ms. Norick,
Yes.
Mr. Robke,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Sturman,
Yes.
Chairman Duffy.
Chair votes yes as well. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation of the village board. Meeting's on July 10th. You might want to attend, just in case there's any questions. If I could, before you leave, could you sign one of these documents for me and keep the other one? And then could I have someone move to...
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2018Z28.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, when you're ready.
Our next case is 2018-Z29, 1522 Isabella Street. This is a request for a 96.82 square foot total floor area variation to permit the construction of a new detached 2-car garage on the legal non-conforming structure.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Back.
Good. Yes, exactly. Good evening. We have another easy garage request. This one is for the Palmers, Scott and Carrie, who will be up in just a moment to identify themselves. But I am Chad Boomgarden, reside at 1315 Central Avenue in Wilmette. The Palmers are active participants and members of the community. They've been in Mackenzie a long time. They're active in the variety show band, volleyball, beach volleyball, every aspect that you can imagine. They have a great design sense. When they bought the house, they renovated the interior, hired a very good interior designer, and they have very good taste. Now that the interior project is done, they're looking towards the rear yard, and they have a dilapidated garage that's quite old that they're ready to renovate. Its location doesn't work very well with the house that was renovated just because of access to the house. So when they do tear it down, they're just requesting to flip it to the east side and then build it to the zoning, the allowable square footage of the 440.
Can I ask, this was a garage that was not built at the time the house was built,
Right,
correct?
that's
So
correct.
this is a pre-existing garage to the home?
Right.
Okay.
So in that request, the garage goes from 404 square feet to 440, I think, originally. Yes, correct. But because when they renovated the house, as you can see, when they did the front porch area, they actually enclosed it. So when I look at why are they over an FAR, and how could they gain that 100 square feet back?
So can you point out, do you have maybe a footprint or a drawing or something of the house that demonstrates what was enclosed, how much square feet was enclosed, how many square feet, I should say?
Overall square footage, but so obviously the smaller area here at the front is what I call the front porch. Now, if you guys did your walk around or look, they actually have this larger decked area
Yep.
out for the front porch.
Do you have an idea, or can you give us an idea of what that enclosed area, what the new,
It's 100 square feet.
it's exactly 100 square feet?
Just
So it's a
over
10 by
what
10 area roughly that got enclosed?
Right, it's like an 8 by whatever the math would be. Yes,
Okay.
8 by 12-ish. Correct.
So the original design of the house, you don't have a drawing of that
I
at
don't.
all to give us a,
It was a renovation, not a new build, in 97, 90.
It was a renovation.
please, you got to come up. I'm
Yeah, you
sorry.
gotta come up and present.
There's a few people that watch on TV that would love to hear what you have to say. Yeah, a few. Don't,
You're welcome.
it hasn't made a star out of any of us yet, so.
Well, thanks for having us. That front area, so we purchased the house when we moved up here in 2010, and so this structure was existing. So the builder that that built the house would have
In
done
97.
that, yeah, 97.
So the house was built in 97, you bought it in 10, right, 2010, and you enclosed this front area?
We did not.
Oh,
No. That may have been, so I can speak to that. When I look at what we're requesting about 100 square feet in FAR. And I look at where would we normally gain FAR on a rehab project? And normally it's the attic bonus, porch bonus, garage bonus, where if something's designed, you get a little bit of a kickback because of
Right.
the scalability of what you're designing.
right.
So the architect, when they did this, and I'm not sure if it was a new house or renovation, I apologize, because sometimes they keep the foundations and they build a new house, so then it would be dictated as a renovation. But back to my point, the way they designed it
New construction.
is in the intent of the porch bonus that you would receive for a house that was renovated. There's a scalability from the street to the house where it steps up to the general massing of the property. That was achieved, and they achieved the goal, which is the reason for the porch bonus, but it is enclosed. And so my argument is to the sense that they meet the requirement in the sense of the intent of the zoning code to get the porch bonus, but they weren't actually granted it. So that's the margins we're talking about
So,
at 1%.
but I want to go back to this whole, you're saying that this was a front porch and it got enclosed. And that's why you should get the bonus.
No, it's just in looking at the intent of what a porch bonus is, why it's granted,
Right.
is because of the design and the scalability and the scale to the streetscape, which they have. But because it is enclosed, they don't get the bonus. Not that it was there existing and then it was enclosed.
Okay, that's the way that I
Yeah.
kind of interpreted what I read. Okay.
So, what you're doing basically is you're increasing the garage size
Yeah.
by 40 square feet. That's it, right?
Yes.
2 by 20,
Right.
roughly. And that's the whole change. Prior to that, it may have been, the existing situation may have been 50 square feet above allowable. Now you're adding 40 square feet to the garage, and that
Right.
causes you to go to 96, which is 1%.
And if I could just speak to the garage design itself, because as you pointed out, it was a garage that was original to whatever structure was there before. It doesn't conform at all to our house. It has a crumbling everything, but also it had a fireplace in it. So there's a chimney that's crumbling.
So it was an in-law?
Right. We've tried.
Our
Right.
understanding was that the original owner was a tinsmith and actually used that as a shop.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, hence
All right.
the entire chimney.
So really what it was pointed out by Mr. Schneider, what we're looking for here is roughly 40 more square feet in an ask, because it's already existing, it's over by,
56.
yeah, and so we're asking about 40 more feet, which is the 20 by 2 feet that they're asking for the extra garage, so. Sorry to cut right to the chase on that.
No.
But I wanted to understand some of your presentation, so sorry to feel like I give you a hard time. Are there any questions that,
So I do have one question. Does the concrete parking pad is going to remain then, where the old garage was?
So I think what we're going to do with we're actually going to bring the yard back further. So actually, we're going to have more yard than we currently have. We do need to keep space for the basketball hoop. So most of my children would be, but it's not going to be the same size of a parking pad as it was before. It appears that way, but we're actually working with a landscape designer right now, and we don't have those finalized
Oh,
plans.
so that's a new pad in the back.
yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
we actually reduced it to meet the requirement to not have to ask for a variance for that
For
as
the
well. 'Cause
impervious.
Lisa worked
Oh,
with us
okay.
and said the impervious actually should be reduced, so we reduced it underneath the.
Okay.
And those 2 birch trees, you're going to work around those somehow?
We're trying to with the
Yeah.
landscape designer right now. So.
Yeah.
One might have to go anyway.
The one that's
just
right up
because-
against the garage, or the one that's in the middle?
I think
If
the
it-
one.
If it comes to the other side, probably the one on the east side.
The eastern mortuary, the one that's in the middle of that lot, yeah. Yeah. And the hoop? You guys are moving the hoop, right?
We're going to move through. That's why there's no neighbors here. We're going to keep in the hoop.
All right, any other questions? No. All right. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this case? All right, seeing no one. You guys can't see. I'm going to ask if there's a member of the board that wants to make a motion. Mr. Schneider, thank you very much.
I move to recommend granting for a 96.82 square foot total floor area variation to permit the construction of a new detached two-car garage on a legal non-conforming structure at 1522 Isabella Street in accordance with the plan submitted.
Do I have a second? Mr. Sermon, thank you very much. Mr. Schneider, your motion.
I think the incremental request here of 40 square feet in this request is minimal. It is less than 0.5% of the total, and so I think it makes sense, and I recommend approval.
Mr. Sermon.
I agree. It's a small request, and the new garage will be much more usable.
All right. Any other comments?
I think we can point to item E, that it's not going to affect the neighbors. It's not going to be, affecting supply of light and air, affect property values. I think this strict application of our codes actually is one of the things that imposes the hardship on this. Is it is such a small request, right? Trying to balance private property rights with our codes.
All right. Any other comments? No, I pretty much, I concur as well. My initial reaction was it doesn't seem like there's any change, but I know there's a minor change involved here. And I apologize if you feel like I give you a hard time about the front porch. I just couldn't understand the way it was written that I thought you were trying to justify it, so I apologize. Why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Schneider.
Yes.
Mr. Sermon.
Yes.
Mr. Boyer.
Yes.
Mr. Colang.
Yes.
Ms. Norick.
Yes.
Mr. Rubke.
Yes.
Chairman Duffy.
Chair votes yes as well. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation of the village board. Meeting's July 10th. Mr. Boomgarden, if you want to come up and sign this for us and take one with you. Can someone also move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the Zoning Board of Appeals for case number 2018 Z29?
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Robke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Thank you. When you're ready.
Our next case is 2018 Z27, 514 Poplar Drive. This is a request for a 440 square foot lot area variation, a 20-foot front yard setback variation, a 4-foot south side yard setback variation, a 6.44-foot combined side yard setback variation, a 0.07 floor area ratio variation, a 27% front yard impervious surface coverage variation, a not 3.3, 5.7 foot, 5.7%, right?
Right here. Yep,
Yep.
5.7.
Rear yard total impervious surface coverage variation, a 4.6% rear yard pavement impervious surface coverage variation.
You're right here. You want to
Yes.
do this one?
No, we're good. Thank you. A 7-foot side yard garage setback variation, a 16.5-foot front yard eave setback variation, a 3-foot side yard eave setback variation, a 1-foot combined side yard eave setback variation, a 17-foot front yard window well setback variation, a 12.5-foot front yard porch setback variation, an 11-foot front yard porch step setback variation, a 2-foot side yard deck setback variation, and a 5.5-foot side yard garage eave setback variation, all to permit the construction of a 4-unit townhouse development with 4 two-car detached garages. Can I make one comment?
Yes.
Given the static that we've been having, if you do have static while you're speaking, please stop, because our minutes don't capture what you're saying, and we do need to get everybody on the record. Thank you.
All right, I'll try and keep the metal plate away. My head back here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a long list. That was a more daunting list than I hope it actually is. Good evening, Chairman Duffy, board members, and staff. We appreciate your time this evening. My name's Kevin Gaisley. I live in Winnetka. I am the applicant. I have extensive real estate development experience in the North Shore and in the Chicagoland area. The team we've assembled to pursue this project are all highly respected local real estate pros. They've all got stellar reputations Ross Friedman, my partner, is a veteran, single-family and townhouse developer based out of Lake Forest. Jim Chambers and Dave Dote with FWC Architects have deep experience and understanding of townhouse design and construction. And Mike Black, the owner of Black Engineering, knows the local stormwater and utility issues cold. We started this process about a year ago, negotiating with Mr. Witt, and in the end, came to a deal conditioned on zoning by basically agreeing to some fairly tough terms, his original terms, which not the most favorable, but that's what we agreed to get this project going. We've studied your comprehensive plan and zoning code, and we believe we're in tune with your goals and objectives while needing some relief from some code requirements. We've met with staff several times, listened closely, and taken their guidance. We've reached out and met with adjacent neighbors and listened to their concerns and walked some of them through the details of our proposal. Some are here tonight. Several have submitted letters of support. We spent a considerable time trying to marry the difficult and odd trapezoid-shaped site into the constraints of the zoning code while fulfilling the objectives of the comprehensive plan. I think we've done a pretty good job of hitting some key objectives. We expect to have a positive net impact on neighboring property values and will enhance the livability, quality of life of our very close neighbors. The design and plan are compatible with adjacent and nearby properties, reflecting architectural styles and materials and supporting the hometown character of the area. By bringing a largely impervious, non-complying property up to village stormwater standards, we're going to free up some local capacity to help alleviate flooding issues for other nearby homeowners. We're going to replace an older, unattractive, non-conforming property. We're going to satisfy a need for more affordable, smaller scale, and what we would call kind of the young old, the young seniors, the empty nesters, people like me, actually. And people that want to stay in Wilmette, that want to downsize. We have several requests of the ZBA to accomplish this. As mentioned, the site configuration is a particular hardship given the long frontage, the short depth of 83 feet to 146 feet. Jim and Dave, I think, have done a masterful job in designing the plan that's in front of you here. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim and then Mike, who's going to walk us through the details of the request. We plug in. Or
we go. Sorry for the delay there. Thank you, Kevin, ZBA Board, and staff. My name is Jim Chambers. I'm with FWC Architects. My business partner, Dave Dote, is here. And we are excited to be part of this project. We have been since the very first time I took a look at the satellite image showing the location in relation to the town center and the opportunity to enhance a walkable community. Our property, as you know, is located directly across the alley from the Village Center zoning district. And that district, as you know, allows much higher density of development. The current zoning for our property allows for 3.85 dwelling units as it stands, and we are asking for 4 units. We believe that this is supposed to stop.
Yeah, hang on. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. We believe that this is the minimum necessary units to support infrastructure and the expense required of that, and to make a viable project. And we also feel that 4 units are the best fit for the 120-foot frontage along the avenue. Is it me?
Not you.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
have no idea what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the other benefit that we see of having 4 units too is that it will allow steeper roof pitches with the 20-foot wide units that we're proposing. And also that it would increase value to the community by having another household. In our early conversations with community development staff, we were encouraged to move the building closer to the front, closer than the 25-foot setback that currently stands for zoning there. And so and also to keep more in line with the existing streetscape. The buildings on either side of us are up at that 5-foot line approximately. It's actually the porch steps on our project that are up there. The building mass itself is back a few feet from there. And we feel this is a better fit for the streetscape. And actually, it's the same as the Village Center zoning for front setbacks. But we realize that the front porches cost us in terms of the setback and also the FAR, but we feel that they're an essential part of a project like this. And that they're really necessary for a friendly and welcoming streetscape. The south setback relief that we're requesting is, well, currently the building that is there is less than a 2-foot setback from that south property line. And we are proposing 6 feet at that point. The closest structure that you see reflected on the survey there too is the neighbor's garage, which is 2.5 feet away from that property line. In order to be more efficient with this site, we looked at a lot of different possibilities as far as how we can put our building on the site and conform to all the ordinances that we need to. So we seriously considered lowering the garages and putting the unit above that. lowering the garages, having sunken garages, partially sunken, and a partially sunken courtyard to access them in the rear. We looked closely at that, but because of existing village infrastructure with the combined sewer and sanitary line, storm and sanitary line, it was advised not to do that. It would be problematic to do that. Also, the elevation of that line was not deep enough to accommodate the level that we would have to place the garages. But had we been able to do that, we could get the entire FAR, or not have to ask for FAR relief. But it was apparent, our engineer advised us that we could not do that. If the system would be overwhelmed, it would be a mess. So we couldn't do it that way. So we had to go to detached garages, and we tried various different combinations to see, to conform with the zoning as much as possible. We tried different shapes and configurations, but ended up with this so that we accomplished the best, had the least amount of paving, and were able to provide garages pretty much adjacent to the backyards of each of the units. And this proved to be the most effective configuration that we could see. So it allows for fenced rear yards, adjacent garages, except for Unit 3. And the other thing we had to do pretty much because of the detached garages and the front porches, is we had to go back and look at the units and try to reduce the size as much as possible without compromising on the desired floor plans. And we were able to reduce it from about 2,000 square feet per unit down to under 1,800 square feet per unit, which is about the very low end of acceptance of market tolerances for this type of unit. As has been mentioned, the trapezoidal shape of the site is problematic for setbacks as well as FAR. And we determined that the staggered footprint that you see here is the most effective way to build on this site. And it has some other advantages besides just fitting well on the site. It breaks up the massing to more human-scaled units here. It provides more daylighting opportunities for each of the units, and it makes both the front and rear porch, or front porches and the rear decks, totally private. So, given the staggered footprint, we have 4 units that are individually expressed. The row house character sort of naturally emerges from this. And we took it a few steps further and enhanced this a bit. We incorporated some subtle changes in the architectural features between each unit. And we changed the window placements and developed different shades of gray in the color palettes to distinguish the units but still have continuity. We wanted a residential appearance and a traditional silhouette so that we could complement the nearby residences, but we also wanted a clean and simple, updated urban aesthetic given this location. And we found inspiration in the modern farmhouse style. Windows are black-clad casements with the simplest mutton pattern. All the trim is kept monochromatic and with each unit's siding color. And we worked hard to maintain 4-sided architecture so that that theme has continuity all the way around the units, all the way around the building. We're able to raise the first floor 42 inches above grade and still maintain the steeply pitched roof. We have 10-foot ceilings on the first floor, and we still maintain compliance with building height restrictions. The raised first floor, we think, adds to the row house aesthetic and helps to daylight the full basement and allows us to express the natural stone base, which we think gives a really solid visual base to the building and a durable, timeless quality. I have one other small point to make regarding the staff report that we felt we should address, and that is regarding the sprinkler system requirement. We've worked hard to develop this project, and in the development, we saw an opportunity to, by just incorporating one steel beam in the basement and a few load-bearing walls, we're able to frame this with all-dimensional lumber. And so, according to Village Code and in my discussion with Scott Berg, he's told us that if it's all-dimensional lumber, that it doesn't have to be sprinkled. So that is our understanding. And
What is all-dimensional lumber?
Pardon me?
What is
dimensional lumber, like a 2x12, 2x10, versus an engineered joist such as a TJI or roof trusses too. Those are not included in that exception. That if you frame with those kind of systems, you have to sprinkle. And a lot of times in a project like this, one would expect to use trusses and engineered joists, but the way the plan evolved, it works out fine without them. So that is our understanding at this point. So I just wanted to make that point.
And you have a 2-hour separation?
Yes.
Between the units?
That's right.
That runs the full height?
It runs the full height, all the way down. Yes, all the way up.
All the way up to, does it have to go all the way to the roof line?
The roof deck, I believe, isn't it, Dave?
To the underside of the plywood, and then the plywood needs to be rated 4 feet each side of that line.
Okay, well, Mike Bleck, our engineer, is next to cover the site engineering considerations. If you don't have any other questions for me, if you do later, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board. My name is Michael Bleck. I'm a professional engineer with Bleck Engineering. We're based out of Lake Forest. And Kevin asked me to speak briefly on two things tonight, drainage and impervious surface coverage. So I'll just keep this brief. Concerning drainage, I'm sure you're all familiar with the site. It's 90 to 95% impervious under its current condition. There isn't any stormwater management. There isn't really any stormwater management taking place out there now. With the proposed plan that's before you, there's a stormwater management plan like you would expect, and all the downspouts and the sump pumps for the new townhomes, as well as the downspouts for the garages, inlet for the driveway, yard inlets for the backyards are all tied into underground detention basin with a release rate that releases at a controlled rate. So this will have a positive impact on drainage in the area. And then concerning the impervious surface coverage, the site front impervious area, the rear impervious area under the current conditions don't meet the requirements. This plan is a step in the right direction towards meeting it. While they're short on the front and the rear overall, they do meet the requirements. It's just distributed a little bit differently. So with that, I will turn it back over to Kevin.
Can I ask
Thank
you a quick question? So this diagram that you have here, the green areas, what does that delineate?
Those are plastic underground pipe.
So that's
the storage.
That's the retention area?
Yep. And at the corner of the alley in Poplar is where the manhole is with the restrictor. So then all those buildings and yard areas and driveway are connected into that system and then release at a control rate.
Did you say that the current impervious surface covers 90% percent of the lot?
I don't know the exact number, but it goes close to, the gravel is extended out close to Poplar. And
But gravel would not be impervious, would it?
typically gravel's compacted to the point where it isn't going to allow water to seep through it.
In any case, what you're proposing here would not result in making the drainage, stormwater drainage issue worse than it is today.
It'll make it better. Because right now, all that water is just sheeting off, whether it's the building or the parking lot, onto neighboring properties. And with this development, everything will be captured and go into that storm sewer system. Like even in the driveway where the west edge of the driveway, so you're going to pitch the driveway away from the garage. There's a curb along the west side of it to capture that runoff before it could get to the neighbor's property, directs it to an inlet, takes it into the storm sewer system. So basically everything on this site is captured and put into a detention basin.
What's the rate at which it can receive the water? I mean, is it like, an inch an hour, or is it?
It's designed to take the 1% storm, a 100-year storm, and then released at a controlled rate.
So there's enough storage there to receive, what is it, like 4 inches in the hour or something like that?
I don't know the number exactly, but it's with whatever your requirements are. So, and it's typically like the 100-year critical storm. So, what is that for that area? Is it a 5-minute storm, a 2-hour storm, or a 12-hour storm? So you go through all those iterations, find out what the critical one is, and that's what you're detaining.
Right, but the main thing being that it's going to be better than what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions?
If you were in I understand the zoning line is just above this. If you were in downtown area,
Center, yeah.
the village center, what is the requirement compared to the requirement here when it comes to detention or impervious?
So this site, being as small as it is below the threshold for requiring detention, but your policy is that you're putting in detention for everything. So even though we're below that threshold, it's still required.
Okay. But the village center doesn't have, do they have an impervious, or can you, in the village center, can you pave everything?
As a reminder, the impervious limits apply only to the required setbacks. In the village center, the only required setback is the rear yard setback, which does not have a coverage limit either.
Okay.
So, yeah, you're right.
I have a question for the architect. My question is, if you were to comply with all the setbacks, what could you build here?
It would be severely limited. Let me flip back here. The site plan there. You see the line where the 25-foot front setback is. So everything would have to be pushed back there. I would suspect there'd be no garages, for one thing. And I don't think...
But garages are required.
Yeah. But if let's say you were to do 3 units or 2 units instead of 4 units, you could find a way to fit within the envelope or close to fitting within. I think that's the direction that you were going, or?
I'm just trying to see what the shape of this lot.
Yeah.
To what extent does that constrain you or limit you to what is feasible if it were to comply with all the required setbacks?
I think it looks like I'd have to check it for sure, but it looks like Unit 4, the one at the bottom, might barely fit pushing it back. The building might fit by itself without any garages.
But so I'm not trying to speak. I imagine you could do a...
And the sides would have to be altered too. You're right. There'd have to be fewer units across.
You could do a duplex.
Yeah, sure.
With What does a duplex require? 4-car garage?
Yeah, 2 spaces per unit.
So a 4-car garage and a duplex, one apartment above the other. I don't know how that would work, but would that be the maximum feasible alternative without any?
Would be something close to that. Just for setback.
Yeah, sure. Outline where the setback area is. You've got it on there. It's also on
Oh, I got it
1.4.
here.
Yeah.
I drew
Yeah.
it.
You can see the one line here.
Yeah.
The next setback comes here. Up to here, to the middle of Unit 3 garage, and then back.
Right.
So it's really this, it's a fairly small area.
Right.
You guys see that?
Do we have any other questions?
Question, on the garages, where's the entrance for each garage?
The entrances are off the alley up here. These two are loaded directly off the alley. We have a front elevation too included in the slides there for that. And then this garage is side-loaded off our new driveway. And then this garage, the southernmost here, is loaded straight on off of that same driveway.
And 22 feet is the optimal width for a drive for that side load?
It's actually, in speaking with the planning staff, we're, I think, slightly wider here than we need to be. 22 feet for this turn-in is adequate, but minimal.
And then how would garage 3, so garage 3, unit 3.
Right.
So walk me through a cycle of parking from the grocery store and then somebody walking in their house. Is there an easement?
That guy has the longest route.
Right.
All the others are adjacent to their backyards, but we have a back door. Cursor go. We have a back door here for that garage. So his path, the actual path is only a little bit longer, I think, than the other ones, but it's along this driveway and in the back. These are the steps here to the deck in the back and into the unit.
So he's going to walk across, and I'm assuming the land is going to be owned by each townhouse owner?
Yes.
Okay. So he's going to walk across Unit 2's property?
Not actually. So he will walk in. This site plan doesn't show all the fencing, but he will actually enter his backyard right here. So it's maybe 30 feet from his garage.
And then Unit 4, I'm assuming that gray shadow, that gray box, is the entrance door?
Yes.
So that's how he's
That's a stoop for the door.
Okay. So that's how garage 4 is
right.
Is going to get out and then access their yard.
Yeah, garage 4, they drive in here and steps out here, and it's maybe 10 feet to the deck, the steps on the deck. And
All right, so snow removal and snow storage.
Right. The staff had us look at that closer, and so we expanded the driveway slightly here for snow accumulation.
So that's going to block garage 3 from accessing the yard if there's a 5-foot pile of snow, right?
There would be a barrier to keep that pathway open there.
Okay.
So then garage 4, you have to back all the way onto the alley.
Yes.
You have to back up 30 feet.
Well, I think from this unit size here, you can back this way and out.
But I thought
But
that
you
was
may
where
have
the
to-
snow was going to be.
Well, yeah, okay, I guess if there's snow, then, yeah, you would. Right.
And then what's the process for trash? Is there a storage facility? Is it going to be fenced? Is it going to be held in each garage, and they're going to tote it out to the alley on trash day? How does it work?
How did we end up in the garage? Individually maintained?
So, the garages are 19 feet wide, and the toter's, let's call it 2 by 2. So that's going to go in the garage somewhere with the 2 cars. Trying to get to the garage.
Then they're going to need space off the alley to put them on trash day, correct?
Right, there's no room in that drawing.
So they have to take the garbage cans and move them down along the side yard of Unit 1 so that they're out of the way of the 2 garage doors for Unit 1 and Unit 3 and out of the drive to access garages Unit 2 and 4. So they got to walk them around the garages to the alley and the side yard. Is that about right?
I think they have to bring them to the alley, and there is,
really
the
no-
driveway is wider than, whoops,
So the driveway's 16 feet wide.
Yeah, 16 feet. I would expect that units 4 and 2 would put it somewhere in that 16-foot width.
6 to 8 foot, the 16-foot width?
So to the east of number 3, garage number 3.
Okay,
to
so
the
east of garage 3, as opposed to, so garage units 1 and 3 move it wherever they're going to put it, either down the side yard or in front of their garage doors, and the other 2, you think is, leave it like along the side of garage 3. Is that what you're saying?
I think in reality, that's what would end up happening. That's what people would do.
Well, you're not going to pave right up to garage number 3, are you?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yes. And I thought at one time, too, we considered that there would be some extra space along this side as well, since it's 16 feet.
So when the garbage can comes down the alley, is it do the guys get out and grab the cans and put them in, or is it like if you're going down the street, the guy's got the claw that comes out, grabs your garbage can?
For that, I'm down the block. It's a claw.
So all
to
those
be
garbage
on the alleyway.
cans have to be out in the alley in order for the garbage pickup to work. They can't
They have to
be
be
in the
facing the
driveway.
alley, they can't be back, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's got this arm that comes out and grabs the can and tilts it in.
Okay.
Can I don't know if this is appropriate. Is it appropriate to ask, you're going to sell these units, right?
That's right.
I'm sort of interested in the affordability of these. Can we ask what the range of prices might be, or is that not appropriate?
I think you can ask, yeah.
You can ask. We're happy to tell you if
All right,
you're
yeah,
allowed
feel
to
free.
ask.
He's asking, yeah.
We expect them to be the middle units somewhere in the mid $700,000 range. The 2 end units probably 800. We view our primary competition as up around Plaza del Lago, where they're trading. Those units are 50, 60 years old and trading at some of them at higher prices with single car detached garages and an outdoor parking stall.
Do you count the basement in these as? No. So what is the square footage?
We're about 1,850 per
It's
unit plus
1,800 first and second floor,
Yeah.
and then it's a full basement.
plus an unfinished basement.
So the basement, you've got it unfinished. How big's that window well that you're putting in? Is that going to be an escape window well?
Yes.
So you have the potential to build out the basements for somebody, or they can build them out, like put a bedroom down there if they want, so that.
So I'm curious. I don't know if Lisa has the answer to this, or maybe you went through it. Is there, with this plan, there have to be some changes with the configuration, but let's say the garages lined up with each unit. Let's start off with my hypothetical with the lot being squared off. So it's 100 by 146 square. I'm not sure this would be a by right development if the lot was squared off. right? I mean, it would still need some variances. Probably the front yard, for sure the side yards would remain.
And then you possibly have some,
Number of residences.
The drive.
Yeah, you eliminate that one.
Bigger, then
Yeah.
of course you eliminate it, but if you square it off, if it was the same area and squared off, it still requires that.
Oh, you're saying same area and squared off, or squared off and,
100 by 146, so,
squared off
14,000
and-
square foot lot.
so now they can have the 4 units?
Right. Well, they can have the 4 units, but the setback issue.
Right. And would you then,
Impervious
so the
surface probably to the
garages,
rear.
the garages would, you'd have to have a drive, so you assume that the garages are closer to the units? And the drive runs along the back, maybe?
I guess in my make-believe world, if we lined up the garages to each unit in a line, and then we had a drive going along the back, 20-foot drive from, north to south, that would increase the impervious surface coverage. Maybe you can fit the garage within the rear yard setback, and I'm assuming it would be like, 10 or 15 feet into the rear yard. But, I'm just spitballing here, but I'm assuming you would still need variances if the lot was rectangle.
I think if the lot was rectangle and bigger, they'd be putting 5 or 6 units on here.
Well, they still have, but
I mean,
it's
if
not
we're gonna do a
it's not any
comparison.
wider, it's just, right, the depth is there, right?
Right.
So they would still have the side yards, right, the setbacks?
You'd have to.
What's our total, excuse me?
Honestly, I don't know the answer. to
Yeah,
your
I don't know,
question.
I'm just,
I will tell you, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out the garages. Ideally, we wanted to minimize the impervious surface. We wanted to maximize rear yard grass areas. We tried really hard to put them all off the alley, like they are up and down the rest of the alley on the street. And you just can't do it. It just does not fit. There's no way to make it happen. We tried to do it along the north-south property line that's on the east side, but you run out of turning circle space and you create all this additional impervious surface. So
right.
as unusual as this looks, we spent a lot of time with a lot of different configurations, and this really is the most efficient that we could come up with.
And this is the view from the alley that you would have of the garage, the upper left corner there. So I think from street level, it would not look irregular at all. It's just from the site plan view, the aerial view, that it looks irregular. And we did this, as Kevin mentioned, to minimize the amount of paving area. And still, Unit 4 garage could be lowered and directly behind Unit 4, but right now it's adjacent to, he steps out of the garage right into his private backyard, and it's maybe 10 feet to the deck and another 5 feet to the door to enter. And this way, it minimized the amount of paving that
We're creating a more open space environment for the two neighbors, the one to the south and the one to the immediate east.
Lisa, maybe you can answer this. Would you be able to tell us if you think they would still need variances if the lot was squared off? Because the hardship that was put forth in the packet was the odd-shaped lot. So if the lot was squared off, would this project need variances anyway?
I think if the lot was squared off, as we're discussing, just 100 by 1, whatever that north line is, 140, you still need the side yard setback relief. And
excuse me, it was like 6 feet or something total, I believe, the side yard request.
I'm sorry, the variation request? The amount of the variation or the requirement?
Request.
I think it was 6, right? 6 feet? 6.4. Got 6 on the south and 4-foot variation from that. So 10 is the minimum and 25 is the combined required. So you'd still probably need assuming the similar configuration, side yard relief, and depending on how you did the garages, if you had them all north to south, whether it's the garage and then the driveway or the driveway and then the garage, some rear yard coverage relief. But I think that would be about it.
Maybe the front yard too?
I think you could get it in.
Porch setback though, or no?
A setback line, you just spin this so it becomes.
Right.
You would reconfigure, obviously. It
Right.
wouldn't be this precise. You would reconfigure and kind of squeeze on the balloon a little bit differently, but it would generally, would come pretty close to fitting within the 14,000 foot with the setbacks, I think.
Yeah.
But without doing the exercise.
I think from an aesthetic standpoint, the staggering helps.
Yes.
The development, the way it is. You know, the concern is the coverage and the area in the back. And I think the one thing that we all have to think about is the setback of 25 feet, I think is unreasonable for this part of town up against the railroad tracks. So the question is what is acceptable, what they have here, or should the setback be more? But if the setback is more, then you're down to 3 units and, more squat units, and then it may not work financially, right? If it won't work. So even if the unit's got a little larger, it goes too far out of the price point. Yeah.
Besides just the land and the structure, it doesn't work.
So it doesn't work.
We've looked at it. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Are there any other questions for the applicant right now? Let me see if there's any other comments. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for or against this case? All right, I'm going to start on this side, and gentleman in the back, and then I'll move to the front and move to the back here.
Hi, my name is Rich Cazzola. I live at COZZOLA. I live at 1107 Greenleaf. So if you were to go up to the alley, make a right-hand turn down the alley, it's the red brick building, condo building over Cashion Brothers. As I think has come out, this, the issue isn't whether something gets built there, it's how much. And this is just too much for too small an area. I think when you walk by in this picture, you don't see how tight this all is there. We've only lived there for about a year. We, looked at townhouses in other parts of Wilmette. We're from Wilmette the last 20 years plus, and the prices down by Plaza del Lago were not 600 or 700 or 800,000. Many of them were in the 500,000 or 600,000 range for comparable sized places. I don't know if the market's gone up that much since a year ago, but there were certainly some in the higher range, but that's not what we saw. And so in looking at this, it's just too much in too little space. I'm not an architect, so I don't know whether 3 or 2 is the better number. The thing this reminds me of most, we used to live on Wilmette Avenue west of where the constructions maybe will take place someday in that 1300 block. And the original proposal there was for 7. Eventually what was approved was 5, and it was kind of like this. It was just a lot of, and that's a much bigger space than this, and it's a
Much
square
bigger
space.
space, yeah.
And it's an extra block or 2 off of the town center. So that's the concern we have there. The gravel lot, I don't go west through that alley every day, but it's not like an area where I've often seen pools of water just sitting. So I don't know that while there certainly will be more grass there under this than there is, the gravel that's there, I think there was a question about, is that pervious or impervious, I think, and it seems to absorb some water, but I don't know what the technical definition is. So it just is too much in too little space, and I think some of the questions about where will the garage go, where will the snow go, will there be a wall there that's not there now that will affect it? There's a lot of questions I think that still need to be resolved. A proposal with 3 or 2 might not make as much money, but or might not, I don't know what the right word for it is, might not be as financially feasible as it as this, but I'm not an expert on that. So I would just ask that that there be some consideration for putting fewer things in that area, having some kind of a setback, maybe not, maybe it doesn't have to go 20, but a 5-foot setback, and the number of variances in this is significant, and I think that tells you that there's too much going into too little space if you have to have that many variances. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Is any questions for?
I do have a question for you, because I drove and looked at other buildings. In the building you're in, where is the green space? Is it on this,
The green
is it a
space is on
courtyard space?
Yeah, the green space, there's a courtyard on the side that has
The west side of the building?
the west side of the
But
building. has
otherwise, you're almost to the lot line. I know in the back, you're set back maybe 10 feet. There's a little bit of a drive before you go into the, is that underground parking?
Yeah, there's underground parking there.
The rug store has one side, and then the other side
And the
is-
residents,
have the other.
what do you call it, just other members of the association have parking spots at a
okay.
lower level underneath. There's green space to the west, and then the next thing to the west is our two private homes.
Okay.
So there's underground parking in your,
Yeah, and it's wonderful.
and
but
is this a different sewer system than this side of the block? Is that
I think
the
it's,
problem?
I'm not sure how far the applicant was looking. This one appeared to be maybe 2 feet lower than the alley. Is that about right, or is it?
Boy,
I mean, it's a slight pitch.
More than 2 feet.
my guess is
More
it's
than
more
two.
than two
It's
two
more than
feet.
2. I'd say it's almost 4.
Yeah,
4.
I
Oh,
mean,
it is?
you know,
Okay. Yeah, I just glanced at it as I drove by.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else on this side that would like to speak? Okay, yes, please come forward. Hi, welcome.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Cole, and we live at 1046 Linden, which is the corner of Linden and 11th Street. And
what?
11th Street. We've lived there in October, 35 years. Over the course of that time, there have been numerous proposed developments for this site. I want to commend these guys. I think this is an absolutely fabulous use of this site. It's very difficult. I know how many times people have come and looked at this site and how they couldn't make it work in anything that would have this aesthetic and thoughtful use. I wholeheartedly support this. I disagree that this is overbuilt. The floor area ratio would virtually allow them to build this anyway with, 0.15 deviation. If it was a little bit bigger, and as you said, if it was squared off, this would have been built 20 years ago. These lots, including ours, that our house was built by the second village president of Wilmette. It's been there since 1870. But it had always been zoned city center until the rezoning that was done. We could build 4 townhouses. When we bought it in 83, we could have built 4 townhouses on there without any variances. This site would have been exactly the same. So when this was moved from city center to the zoning that it now is as our house, it was downzoned, and this is what the result is. But I really think that if we're going to continue to encourage this kind of urban development near our city center, this is a fabulous choice, and I'm for it.
Is your home on the northwest corner?
It is on the northwest corner.
Okay. I noticed it today. It's a very nice home. You had landscapers there today?
We did have landscapers there
okay.
today, and
Yeah,
we're trying to
it's a
figure
large
out if
lot.
anybody knows. We've asked the village when the sewer system was put in because we're redoing our lateral, and it's very difficult to find, and there's been a lot of ups and downs regarding that, and nobody at the village can tell us when our sewer was put in. But we know it was after 1870. But other than that, we got nothing. but yes, that's our house, and so we've seen a lot go on in the last 35 years.
Super.
And what size lot do you have?
It's 190 by 150. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Any other questions? No. Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else on this side that would like to speak? No. Okay, I'll start in the front row, or second row here. Please come on up. Hi, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Tom Keefe, Keefe. My wife and I live at 1064 Linden, which we purchased in February of 2016 out of foreclosure.
Welcome to Wilmette.
Thank you. That is the property down here, and that's our crappy garage over there. We're excited about this project. We met with Kevin, and we've talked with the team. And there's some things from my notes, which I can't read anymore, but I'll point out. Traffic, we don't think is going to be so much of an issue because these are probably going to be retirees or something like that. So even though there's 4 garages here, that's probably not going to be so much on the alley, especially given that there's a really huge complex that's being built over here. So in terms of the amount of disturbance here, we don't think that's going to be that much. Perhaps other neighbors would like to speak on that. I'll leave that to them. We're not on that alley, so my opinions are marginal. They seem to have taken into account all the drainage issues and the water issues, which are a main concern for us, especially given flooding in the past that we've come to learn about. As far as the setbacks go, there is no setback here for our garage, right, presently. And if they were to move that back 6 feet and they're to move this up 6 feet, I can show you a picture. We're 19 inches away from our neighbor right now. So 6 feet helps us. So we're fine with those 2 setbacks. We think those are actually advantageous to us and advantageous to the area. We think that this is going to improve our property value and improve the property value of the area. One of the things to take into consideration is if there was something that could be built that was a duplex or something smaller, somebody would have already proposed to do that. And in terms of saying that, this is the best proposal that we've seen as long as we've been here. And I think that's something to keep in mind in terms of whether it fits perfectly or not. It's an odd space. As far as the style goes, we like what they've done with that, and we actually are looking to incorporate our property into that style to make that look sort of all the same going down. That may take a while. We're still trying to figure out how to pay for everything we've done so far, but we may get there. And we also would like to incorporate the landscaping plan. Am I missing anything? I don't know. My last comment is as far as some of the things on the property themselves go, I think those are up to the buyers. But, I realize you have your all regulations and stuff that you need to deal with. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
Yes, Mr.
I just have one question. Your letter, did you write that?
I think so. Can I see it?
Sure. It's just because it's identical to different letters in here, I was just curious.
I probably...
I provided a form letter to several of the...
That's my signature.
I know.
So I just read it and signed it.
I know. I'm just, the content is identical to other letters. I was just curious where...
The staff said that when I speak to the residents, make sure the residents are aware of...
You got to speak into the microphone. I'm sorry. Yeah.
The staff's direction, when I was meeting with the neighbors, said make sure the neighbors are aware of what you're asking for. Don't just show them a picture and expect them to give you a check mark. So I drafted the core content of the letter, and
okay. Just
I
curious.
presume I haven't seen the letters. I presume people, adjusted it to suit their own needs.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd like to point out that I am an attorney, so I would have at least read the letter before I signed it. So,
Any other questions? Mr. Boyd?
Can I chime in on that letter? I know it may look generic, but he showed us sort of an example, and in the midst of working like 80 hours a week, I changed a couple of things in it and sent it off. If you want a personalized one, I'm more than happy to send one. But I figure that was more basic, and you didn't want a 5-page letter.
No, we're good.
We are in full support of this, and we love the plan.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Boyer.
I just, maybe anybody can answer this question. So there's no parking going north on Poplar, It's on the west side of the street, and that's permit, right?
No,
Or is
it's
is it metered?
It's like the parking lot.
There's parking over here.
Yeah.
2-hour parking up until
2-hour parking.
9,
2-hour parking, okay.
9, 11.
Yeah, I remember there's a sign there. I can't remember which one it
On
was.
this side, you can't park on the east side, but you can park on the west side. And then this over here is the train parking. And actually, on the weekends, you can park there for free, unless anyone wants to correct me on that.
All good. All right. Anybody? Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Next row back. Yes, please come forward. Yes.
My name is Marie Jones. I live at 1058 Linden. My husband and I have lived there for 31 years. This property has been under discussion on and off for 25 of those years. There have been 2 previous proposals about what to do with it. It's been zoned as R2 all the way through. The 2 previous proposals required rezoning the property as VC and then paving it over completely. This is the best project we've seen by far, and I think it's really the best project we can hope to see for this property that is in conformity with the village's repeated intention to build townhouses or a single-family house, but to build residential units on this property. Going back to the 2 previous proposals, one was for a 24-hour drive-in bank and parking lot that would be lit all night. The other was for a 4-story apartment building that was then scaled back to 3 stories of apartment building, but paving the property over from edge to edge. This property, even with the variances, has green space. It has space between, the buildings and the lot lines. It has the capacity for landscaping. It has a low residential profile. And I think the builder has been inventive in coming up with a proposal that looks like single-family houses. They're varied, they have porches, they're very much in keeping with the look of the neighborhood, which is largely a frame and stucco neighborhood. This, where we live, is not this property right here, but the next one over. Our property for years has suffered from backyard flooding in the case of heavy rains, and in some cases, backyard flooding that comes almost to the level of the houses. The redevelopment of the house right next to us, this one here, where the landscaper took into account the builder took into account the drainage issues, improved things for us, but we still get flooding. And one of the reasons we get flooding is that the building that is right along here drains directly into our neighbor, and it runs downhill then into our yard. So that the proposal here with the drainage, storage, and the additional green space and more permeable land than currently exists will be a help for our property. The transformation of that odd-shaped property from some very tired old one-story buildings to this residential but modestly scaled set of 4 townhouses, I think will enhance, certainly enhance our neighborhood, and I think it will be an enhancement to the village at large. So I am strongly in favor of this proposal.
Any questions? I have one question for you. You like the idea of townhouses, right? I think everybody's expressing the idea that a townhouse development here is a good idea.
What? I'm very hard of hearing.
You like the townhouse look?
Yes.
Okay. Would it make a difference to you whether it was 2 units, 3 units, or 4 units? It's the townhouse look that you like?
I think, if somebody came in with 2 units or 3 units, I would be in favor of that too.
It's the transition that you like, that it's residential looking but a little more dense, right, than an apartment building, say.
Yeah,
I think
the
that-
addition of the 4th, if what you're asking about really is the 4th unit, that doesn't bother me.
But we're talking about the style, yeah.
I know that the property needs to be economically viable. And if it requires a 4th unit for the units to be affordable, given the basic cost of the land and the building costs, then I am just really eager to see this property finally developed into the kind of project that the village has intended for so long.
Right.
So I'm comfortable with 4 units.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else on this side that would like to speak? Please come forward. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jane George. I live at 1055 Linden Avenue, and I've been there at 14, 15 years. I don't remember. While I want to agree with my neighbors on the aesthetics of this plan, I think it really would help enhance the property and the overall look of the neighborhood. I do have concerns about the density and the fact that there are 4 units there. In addition, I'm kind of a tree advocate, and I can't help but notice that all the old-growth trees are going to be taken down. And I would imagine with the underwater system to handle the storm waters that they won't be able to be replaced with other trees at all. So when I look at this rendering, it's very aesthetically pleasing, but the reality of it is none of those trees would actually be there behind those houses. And what you do see are the tall buildings that are, the apartment buildings that are across the alley from that. So I think it's going to be quite a dense little property without the residential feel with the old growth trees gone, and I'm concerned about that. I agree with everything else that my neighbors have said. The property is sad and lots of discussion about it. This is aesthetically very pleasing. I just think it might be a little too dense. The other note relative to garbage pickup, while it may seem a minor issue, is that my house is an irregular lot and my driveway actually is on Poplar, so I have to pull all of the garbage cans to Poplar Street so that the garbage, the claw, as you call it, can actually empty the garbage cans. I don't think that would be possible, or if it's necessary, with these all close together, sharing joint walls and not being able to get through there. I just think it's a little too dense.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. So you're further down the alley.
I am.
Share the same alley that is here?
No, I'm across, I'm on the south side of
Oh, okay.
Linden. I am the second house in from Poplar.
Okay. You're saying you have to bring it down that alley and all the way to Poplar?
I don't
No.
have an alley,
Oh,
so I
see.
have to bring it from my
To
driveway
Poplar.
to
Okay.
put it
Okay.
on Poplar Street.
All right.
Yeah.
So, your address is Linden, but your garage faces Poplar because of you've got the side-loaded garage, right, that cuts across kind of somebody else's backyard?
That's
Yeah.
right.
That reminds us of the case, right?
Yes, yes, this was about 2 months ago.
Right.
Yeah, we
I
had
was
to
here
this
then, too.
case.
Mhm.
So the question I have is, you're saying that you have to put your garbage cans on Poplar, not on Linden, even though your address is Linden, right?
Right.
And there is no alley that runs
Oh,
there.
I just bring them down my driveway and
Right.
leave them at the end of the driveway.
So, this, Mr. Keefe, your address is Linden. Where do you put your garbage cans?
On Poplar.
Outside the garage,
On Poplar.
Yeah.
So they're looking. So it seems like where the garages are is where the garbage is getting picked up from. So let's see. Then does Marie Jones, is your garbage picked up in the alley then?
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
alleys.
Okay, super. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? No, okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Jones, please come up. Thank you very much for volunteering this extra bit of information for us.
I'm Rich Jones, and you can guess where I live. One house, there's one house that separates us to the west of our house and to the east of this property. We have lived there for 31 years, and when we heard about this, we said, this is the project we have been waiting for all of the battles we've had over zoning and the village plan, which drew the village border at this alleyway. We've always said it's zoned R2. R2 is defined as transition between a more densely populated area and our residential area. So this meets all of the requirements that we've been looking at. With regard to the zoning issue, water has been a big issue. That's been discussed. We were very pleased at the attention that the company was giving to alleviating the water problem. All of that is very, very positive. We will miss the old trees that are there, but whatever goes in there, those trees are on their last days anyway. In the last storm, there was considerable damage from falling, excuse me, considerable damage from falling limbs. So I agree. I like the old trees, but they're not long for this world anyway. With regard to garbage, I put mine out in the alleyway. There's plenty of room between this property and the alleyway, so they can just be carted out right along here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No problem at all.
Yeah. It's just the effort that someone's got to go through and run the garbage cans over there. So it's a claw machine. The garbage can's got a claw in it.
They do both.
Yeah.
Some people don't get their garbage cans out all the way, so guys get off and they throw them on.
Yeah.
But one time when I was out there, he said, set it 2 feet away from your garage, otherwise that claw
Can hit your
might
yeah.
do something that you don't want to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't see garbage collection as an issue with this
We just want to make sure
proposed
there's
development.
room, yeah. All right,
And that goes for snow removal as well. There's plenty of space here to move the snow. We've had situations in the past where we've had 5 feet of snow in front of our garage doors from neighbors to the north, but there's plenty of space there for snow removal.
Any other questions that we have? No? Thank you very much for coming and clarifying some
Thank you
things
for
for
your
us. Yeah.
consideration.
Is there anybody else on this side that would like to speak? We've got applicant. All right, Kevin, you want to? There's a couple of things that were brought up. Too much density for a small area, and what was the other negative that we had was too much density for a small area. The trees, I think, the trees, whatever's going to go in there is going to take down those trees.
That's correct. Start with the trees. The trees the existing trees will come down. I think there's 6 trees currently. 2 are completely dead. One is actually used as almost as a telephone pole. There's another completely dead tree in the lot, and then there are three or four that are quite old. They will come down. We don't have our landscape architect here. We do have a landscape architect engaged. We've got maybe Jim Chambers. Can you recall? We've got 4 or 5 different varieties of trees that we will be planting as part of an extensive landscape plan. And I'm sorry we don't have it with us. We didn't expect this issue. Is it in here?
Actually, we may have a slide of it.
Okay.
I wanted to address something just briefly, too, on the trees, too, if I could. We've had 2 arborists tell us that, because we started planting around them, and they looked at them and they said, forget about it. They're old cottonwoods and have lived a long life, and they said that there's just no hope in putting anything into trying to save them. I think I have a plan here for the landscape, too. And regarding planting new ones, here's a draft of landscape plan.
Oh, there you go.
And so there definitely is plans to plant new trees in the back. You have to be careful as to the variety and the grid of the water storage below, but it is doable, and that is our intention, to plant considerable trees in the back as well.
And this plan's been done in conjunction with our engineer, Mike Black, who can speak to how it interrelates to the underground piping.
Right, so we did meet with the landscape architect, and one of the concerns was what is the depth that you need in order to get the plant material in there? And we were looking at a 2.5 to 3 foot planting bed. So those pipes that were shown are all deeper than that to allow for the planting of trees and shrubs.
And these are PVC pipes, or?
Yep.
All right, and this, just so everybody's aware, this has to go before appearance review. So it's not really.
Based upon a 2.5 foot depth, that suggests very limited height to the trees, maybe.
That's at the very upper end of the detention, so as you go downstream, you get, you get more. I mean, we looked at less pipe, bigger pipe, but then you start getting into the planting zone, so we went with smaller pipe, deeper.
Just pointing out so everybody understands it limits the size of the tree.
So on this plan, I see fence typical 6 foot, and there's an arrow, and I'm assuming the boulder line is where the fence is going to go along the alley. Am I reading that right?
Along the north side of the property line?
Right.
That's correct. That is the fence line.
Because that's Unit 1's yard, basically.
It's creating a small side yard for Unit 1.
Right. Okay.
Is that right, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
There's a fence elevation too in the set here. There we go.
Okay. Everybody's good on this? Is there anything else you want to add before we
You
close
were
the
also
case?
asking about density. I understand that economics are not something that you guys consider. I get it. That's standard fare. I do think the density is important. It does help support the village center, the resurging village center. It's come a long way. More people helps keep the retail alive. I'm a retail developer by history. You need head count. I think the long frontage on Poplar is enhanced by having the 4 units rather than 3 and having it spread out. It is a transitional zone. It's not R1, it's R2. Some density is expected. I just think it helps support the streetscape up and down.
Okay. Everybody's, no more questions? All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to close the discussion. I'm going to ask if there's a member of the board who'd like to make a motion here. Thank you. Mr. Snyder.
Where are we here?
I'm looking for which page it's on. It's on page 7 here. Oh, the revised one. Oops.
Hold on a second. Here's the.
Oh, I got it.
Here, you know what? Mr. Schneider, you want to grab this one. It's got a couple of alterations in it.
For case number 2018-C-76, request, move to approve request for a 440 square foot lot area variation, a 20-foot front yard setback variation, a 4-foot south side yard setback variation, a 6.44 combined side yard setback variation, a 0.07 floor area ratio, or 848 square foot variation, a 27% front yard impervious surface coverage variation, a 5.7% rear yard total impervious surface coverage variation, a 4.6 rear yard pavement impervious surface coverage variation, a 7-foot side yard garage setback variation, a 16.5-foot front yard eave setback variation, a 3-foot side yard eave setback variation, and a 1-foot combined side yard eave setback variation, a 17-foot front yard window well setback variation, a 12.5-foot front yard porch setback variation, an 11-foot front yard porch step setback variation, a 2-foot side yard deck setback variation, and a 5.5-foot side yard garage eave setback variation to permit the construction of a 4-unit townhouse development with 4 two-car detached garages. That is a mouthful.
Second.
Mr. Robke, thank you for your second. Mr. Schneider, your motion.
I looked at this, spent a lot of time thinking about this request. It requires, the key is the setback requirement on Long Poplar, as well as to the east. And just to address one issue in my mind that I was thinking about was, if they complied, as I was asking, if they were to comply with all the setback requirements and not have any variation, I'm not sure they could build even 2 townhouses with the required garages. I haven't laid it out, but certainly not 3 without variation request. The second, as mentioned by several people here, the R2 zoning was intended to be a transition from single-family detached to the high-density central business district. And it allowed for duplex units or townhouses, in other words, more density. If this had been 100-foot, which was the minimum required width of a lot for townhouses or duplex units, 100-foot wide or 2 traditional with lots, and it were 150 feet deep, and it backed onto an alley, this would comply with all requirements. The unique thing here is the shape of the lot and the fact that it fronts a street and an alley in such a way that it cannot conveniently be organized such that you can put the units facing the street with the required setback and the garages facing the alley. So this is a unique lot. I think we all have to agree it's an improvement in what is there. I think it helps aesthetically the community. It provides somewhat higher density, which is what we're all looking for near this village center. So regardless of all of these, which sounds like insurmountable variation requests, I think this is the appropriate thing to do for this site.
Mr. Robke?
I think that the majority of these setbacks and even the front yard setback isn't a problem for me. I understand it as part of the transition from the zone. I'm very troubled by the density. The density is almost at the point that, is it a transition to a lower density, or is it extending something that's a little bit too dense? I think the renderings, the design look very nice. Over the years, I've seen quite a few renderings. I don't think it'll feel quite so spacious and horizontal. That's just my professional opinion. And I'm worried about that 4th unit and the density that 4th unit brings. As I say, the setback issues that you spoke about, I don't take exception to any of your comments, the unique nature of the site, and the desire to cut some slack because this is a transition zone. But I'm very troubled and have a difficult time right now supporting because of the overall density.
Okay. Any comments on this side?
I have a question. Density, meaning, I know what you mean by density, but the 1 extra unit?
The extra
or
unit.
The lot, or the coverage of the property?
It's not it's the combination of the coverage. I think the side yards, it's just pushing a little bit too much in every direction, contributing to that density.
Yeah. I look at it, are you finished? Okay. I look at it and I think, what's going to happen to that property just to the north? And we know what happened to I don't know what the name of the property is, the one that's just adjacent to that building to the east. I mean, that's a fairly large building. I don't remember if that was a PUD.
No.
The brown brick.
It's by right.
By right? It seems like it's over 35 feet tall, though.
Yeah, but it's Village Center.
Village Center can be what height?
I'd have to look it up in that district.
Okay. So then the building that's going to be to the, potentially in the future, where the old backyard barbecue could then be a 45-story building and have, or 45-foot maybe. Maybe that's what's there. And that's going to be fairly dense. So to me, I think the transition is acceptable here. I guess it's been vacant or used as a parking lot now for at least 25 or 30 years. My initial reaction was it was too much, but I'm not sure what the perfect thing is for this property. This might be it.
Mr. Collins?
Yeah, I mean, clearly this development is preferable to what's there today. Obviously, there's a lot of neighbor support because they are tired of looking at what's there. I don't think that your water issues are going to be alleviated by changing what's there, but, and I think putting the fence along the alley creates nowhere to put snow and nowhere to put the garbage cans, and that's not a driver here. My issue is, I mean, this is, it does look great, and I think something like this is the right thing for there. I agree with Mr. Robke on the density issue. The lot has not been purchased. I think the hardship here is economic. And, we're not looking at economics as a hardship. So you're looking for a boatload of variances with new construction, which typically we're not interested in, it's difficult for us to approve that. And when I combine that with the density, I come down with Mr. Robke. I don't think it meets the standards of review.
All right. I'm going to move this way. Do you have...
I'm not that concerned about the density. I think it is an appropriate use for a highly visible location, and I think it's an appropriate transition from the village center where the density will be even greater.
Okay. Mr. Boyer?
So, as a neighbor, the design looks great, right? It's a really creative plan. I love the traditional look. As a zoning question, what we're supposed to do here tonight, we're looking at 16 variances. It's quite a lot. And even if the lot was squared off, there's possible multiple variances that are still needed with a conforming lot, right? Because of that, it makes me think that we're asking this lot to do too much. If we have a conforming lot and need variances anyway, then again, we're asking it to do too much. I mean, that's the answer, right? That's the most simple answer I have in my head. Now, there could be something that's changed. I think you mentioned the front setback. You didn't have any concern with it. So I think 5 feet is a little bit close, right? I mean, we can
The
talk.
cumulative impact of all of them.
Right,
I'm
we can
not
talk,
picking
right,
one.
right. So, but the point is there could be some design changes. I don't know what they are, right? There could be some design changes, which makes us more amenable to everybody on the zoning board. There's just too many variances that are required for this project. Now, we've heard all the stories of things that have been proposed over the years. This lot's been for sale in perpetuity. That makes me think that the dirt's too expensive, right? If we're selling a lot, right, if we're talking about the economics of, you're selling a lot and nothing can be built because it's not economically feasible, then what's wrong? Something's too expensive. What is it, right?
Somewhere along the way, something got too expensive, whether it's the profit that someone wants to make or the purchase price of the lot. That's what you're saying. It's not, yeah, somewhere along the way, something's...
Now, I'm just putting it through my simplification machine, but that's what I'm coming out with.
All right, so let's go back to, I mean, I think everybody, the feedback I'm getting from this board is everybody's in favor of townhouses going there, right? Everybody likes the look.
The R2 district, the transition zone, that's what it's there for.
The design is beautiful. I mean, you guys,
great.
It's fantastic. I really like the way the houses look. I really like the way that it's stepped back. I think that's perfect. I tend to fall to, I think maybe there's too many units here as well because of the number of variances that we're asking for. But when I looked at it, I think, Ms. Roberts, I asked her before the meeting started if this was a squared-off lot, and what she drew was a plan that the longest length along the alley and dropped down and then went back. What I visualized as a squared-off lot was the same square footage, but in a squared-off lot. That's really what, if you're going to try and square this off and try and compare apples to apples, is what you're looking at. And in that instance, you still run into almost all the variances that are being asked right now. You have that shortened depth, because if you turn it as a trapezoid.
Two comments. If this were a 100-foot by 150-foot lot, with one side facing the street, because townhouses have to face the street per zoning code, and the other side face the alley, there would be no variances required, because the garages would be accessed off the alley. But that's not the case here, because we have the alley on
the side.
Kind of a configuration. The second thing is, we're talking about the density. And my guess is, the only thing you could do here is maybe do a two-flat, and you may still require variances.
I don't think it's, some variances. If you put in 3 townhouses instead of 4, you need less variances.
But I understand. But you still have the major variances, which is the 20-foot setback variance from Poplar. You couldn't get away from that.
And I don't think anybody thinks that.
And that's the major variance.
That's a deal breaker. Maybe 5 feet should be a little bit longer. If you had 3 townhouses, you could probably accommodate that.
Because you can make the townhouses wider, maybe they wouldn't have to be quite as good. You'd cut maybe 2 or 3 feet back, from where they are now. I mean, it's just, I'm falling with these two guys on this one. And I see what you're saying, because when I asked for the outlining of what's the buildable area here, you can see that there's not, that almost any project is going to require variances. But can we minimize the variances that are being requested? And that's often one of our goals as people come to us with their requests. We still give some allowance for variances, but we ask to reduce them.
The only last point I want to make is that the other variances, other than the front yard setback, are relatively small, and we've encountered those in many other situations. That's my only comment.
Very true. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything else?
Yeah, no. I agree with Mr. Colling, Mr. Robke as well about, what is the hardship here?
Yeah.
The hardship can't be based on, we can't fit what we want to fit. I mean, that's not a hardship. We have that with residential. People want to build a bigger house. Well, I can't build my house unless I have a sunroom, or whatever the issue is. So there is no hardship. I think the irregular lot argument might be able to be used when you've got a small residential lot, 7,000, whatever square footage, but this is a fairly large lot. And I think the part that initially concerned me was just the back area with the garages and how it seems so constrained and contorted to be able to maneuver within those garages, that in a development like this, that shouldn't, I don't think should be as much of an issue, and that as a result of the density.
Right. So I mean, even if you looked at it with one less unit, then you don't have that, you don't have as many problems in the back as what they're presented. You got.
You could probably have all 3 garages on the alley then.
Oh, potentially, yeah, and then have the, okay, any other comments over here? I mean, everybody's got what they want to share? Okay.
But our decision, I mean, that's what we're told by the Board of Trustees. We're supposed to look at the standards and see what the hardships are. And
Right, I mean, I understand the trapezoidal issue on the front of the, and I think they've addressed that, and I fall with Mr. Colling there as well. I mean, I think I can live with, you know, a larger encroachment into that front yard setback, just because it's townhouses, it's where they are, right there next to, you know, across the alley. Something's going to be built very close to the property line because it's in the village center, and so as a transition, I mean, I can live with it.
yeah, I could live with the front one maybe a little bit further back.
Right, 25.
25
seems-
I don't think is ever, I think it actually.
Seems unreasonable.
If it was 25 feet, I think we'd ask somebody to actually move it forward, because it would be too far back possible.
All right, we ready? Should we vote? Okay, let's take a vote. It's closed, sorry.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Robke?
No.
Mr. Boyer?
No.
Mr. Colang?
No.
Ms. Norick?
Yes.
Mr. Sermon?
No.
Chairman Duffy?
Chair votes no as well. That's going to go as a negative recommendation to the village board. The meeting's July 10th. I'm going to encourage you, if you'd like to take this little window of time, to present this to the board, because they have the right to overturn us with a majority vote, I mean, a supermajority, which is 5 votes. And they've done it in the past, where they see that they want a development to happen that we say doesn't fit within our zoning code. I would say go ahead and run it, but I don't know what your time fuse is here with the seller. You know, I know you've got it under contract, so maybe they'll work with you to get to the village board and give you some more time. All right, someone going to make this recommendation for me? And then...
I move to authorize. Yeah, I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2018-C-27.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Move to approve the board minutes for the zoning board of appeals for Wednesday, May 16th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. All right, we are going to open the microphone for public comment. If anybody wants to make an announcement, is there nothing? All right, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting then. Kevin, could I